This is the Rock and Metal Faith Podcast.
With electric guitars, the heavens shake through every riff, our souls awake. This is rock and metal faith. The thunder roars, his name is praised. Through light and dark, his love will fade. Forever loud, rock and metal faith.
Woo! All right. Welcome to the Rock and Metal Faith Podcast. If you're just joining us for the first time or you've been around a while, thanks for coming back. And thanks for joining us. If this is your first time, I'm your host, Aaron Hancock. I'm usually joined by my co host, Chris Plamondon, but he's not here today. This is just a bonus episode. So, for those who are new to the podcast, once a month, we're going to do a bonus episode, short little episode where we talk about birthdays that are happening in the Christian rock and metal scene for that month. And for those of you who have been around a while and are enjoying these birthday bonus episodes, we're going to actually add a little more to them. I'm going to feature a band and talk about them before the birthdays. It'll be just not an in-depth review of the band or their catalog, just a quick overview. I decided to do this, talk more about bands. There's always a lot of people coming onto the Christian rock and metal scene as listeners and don't always know who they should check out. So we're going to kind of go through bands and we'll do that. Today, we're starting with the band Allies. All right. So Allies was a rock or contemporary Christian metal band, primarily in the mid 80s to the early 90s. And this is the era of music we cover mostly, although we do talk about the newer bands as well. Allies, I remembered their sound was, I would say, the AOR, the arena rock sound. They were formed in 1984 in San Bernardino, California, by guitarist Randy Thomas with lead guitar and vocals. Bob Carlisle was lead vocals and guitars as well. Both those guys went on to, Bob especially went on to become a successful solo artist after Allies broke up. And Randy also helped write with Bob Carlisle on a successful song, Butterfly Kisses, more of a contemporary song, but some of you may know that song. Also in the band, we have Sam Scott, who did keyboards in the early years, and Matthew Chapman, who did bass. Jim Erickson did drums, and other members included Kenny Williams, Scott Sheriff, Mark Hill, and Brian Fullen. Apparently, multiple lineup changes occurred throughout their career. They had 6 studio albums released between 1985 and 1992. And the first one is just titled Allies. The last one being Man with a Mission. I've heard parts of the previous one, The River, released in 1990. Some good stuff off of there. You might want to check out the song Burden Down. All right, so that's a little bit about Allies. Very AOR rock band of the 80s. Kind of like a Journey type of sound, I would say, maybe. Not quite as high in vocals. Or maybe a Journey Bon Jovi sound, although they weren't trying to copy Bon Jovi. There weren't really comparisons there, but stylistically, I think they fit in that whole genre. All right, so on to birthdays. This is the first bonus episode of 2026 for the month of January. So let's get into it here. January 3rd, we have Chris Hyde, who is a drummer He has played with Holy Soldier, I think, in the later years. Also played with Deliverance and Vengeance Rising. And Chris Hyde was born 1965, January 3rd. January 8th, we have Glenn Rogers, best known as the guitarist for uh, Vengeance, also played with Deliverance as well, born 1966. Also on January 8th, we have Chris Davis, who plays bass with Majestica. Now, for those of you who don't know Majestica, because they're kind of new on the scene or newly discovered, and I just kind of discovered them, I think last year, a couple years ago, with an album that came across my radar called Power Train, I think it was believe it's called. Anyways, a very melodic power metal band, great band, worth checking out. If you have not heard of Majestica, check them out wherever you're checking out new music. January 10th, we have Lincoln Bowen on guitars. He was part of Mortification from the year 96 to 2001, and then again in 2011 to 2016. Lincoln Bowen of Mortification, born January 10th. January 12th, we have Greg X. Volts, born 1950. For those of you who do not know, Greg Volts was the original full-time singer for Petra. Petra went without really a main singer on the first album or two. Bob and one of the other guys was trading vocals back and forth, but then they brought in Greg Volts to be the main vocalist, and then he left the band in the early 80s. January 19th, we have Michael Ulsgaard, who did drums with Jerusalem. Jerusalem was one of these Swedish metal bands. Did make a little bit of inroads and gain some popularity over here in North America. Michael Ulsgaard, born 1962. Once again, January 19th. Also on January 19th, we have Steve Rowe, who is a founder for Mortification, also did bass and vocals with them. Steve Rowe, born 1965. So a couple of Mortification birthdays in January here. January 21st, we have Glenn Kaiser of the Rez Band, born 1953. If you're not familiar with them, Rez started out in the 70s. They're a blues rock, hard rock band. They've been kind of compared to Zeppelin, not sound-wise, but just more stylistically, cranking out the electrified blues and adding a little more distortion to it. Started out under the name Resurrection Band, shortening down to Resurrection, and then shortening down to Rez. So depending on which album you're talking about, same band has different names. So. And then on January 27th, we have a album anniversary. Only to Rise from Sweet and Lynch came out in 2015. Only to Rise was a side project with Michael Sweet and George Lynch. Michael Sweet being the guitarist and vocalist for Stryper. Likes to do a lot of side projects. When he's not doing Stryper, he's doing his own solo stuff. And when he's not doing that, he's doing these side projects. Sweet Lynch, Michael Sweet and George Lynch. Only to Rise, I can't remember now if that was the first or the second. The duo has put out 3 albums now. Anyways, that's about it. Nice, short and sweet for January. And so that's it for this bonus episode. This is Aaron Hancock for the Rock and Metal Faith. God bless everybody. And we'll see you on the main episode.